also, we'll stand and do the pledge of allegiance to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have the minutes of December 9th. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes as mailed?
1 minute.
Second.
Okay, those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. We also have the minutes of December 11th. Move it.
Second.
Okay. Discussion. Those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Item 2 is discussion and approval of the claims.
Move on.
Second.
Discussion. Those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Human Resources Department, I'll pass around the personnel transactions. Mr. Clausen, you want to take that, please? Need a motion
Move it.
to approve that transaction. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. Those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, item number B is discussion and action on compliance with mental health parity and health plan. Ed, you want to just take that portion of it and give us an explanation of what's going on?
Sure. What happened is, when every year, the actuaries from Wellmark take a look at our plan, make sure that it's in compliance with the Mental Health Parity Act. We've been in compliance every year. Evidently, there's a newer standard for substantially all. And they determined when they went through our benefits and looked at them this year based on past 12 months claims payment, that we did not quite meet substantially all. We're 50-50, and we have to have 2/3 of the benefits pay the same as they would for mental health. Because of that, and because of some other issues that would be brought up if we made any other changes, the change I would recommend is that we take this from a situation where a mental health office visit has a copay to where any mental health office visit waives the copay. That'll bring us in compliance. We'll be at substantially all. It doesn't alter any of the rest of the plan then, and it doesn't affect our grandfather status. Anything else we would do would cost us more than what that change would. There is a cost to it. It's a rough estimate of about $15,000 a year to make this change, because we have about 750 mental health office visits a year. So there is cost to it, but I think it's better than the alternative, which if we make the other changes, it would cause us to lose grandfather status, which is going to cost us a whole lot more than $15,000 a year. And
So-
affect operating expenses.
So your recommendation is the first bullet here, waive members' costs, share of office and mental health, currently waive deductibles.
Yes.
Co-insurance.
Yes.
Is there any further explanation on that? It's needed by the board?
Where does this directive come from?
Wellmark, their actuaries look every year. This is part of what they do. Their actuaries look at it and run the tests on all of their health plans to ensure that they're meeting the mental health parity standards.
Okay. Is there a motion to adopt the recommendation?
I'll move it.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any further explanation? Those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Now, this next item, item C, is discussion and action on encrypted emails.
Is it the encrypted sorry.
You got
Looking
another?
for you instead of encrypted. You're trying to That's not really how to help out your friends, is it? What I know, John and I and a couple of the other people have discussed at length what needs to be encrypted. What our fear is that somehow a piece of information could come from someone's email inadvertently and go out to someone else maybe to the right person even, and most likely to the right person, but because it's an electronic transmission of data that's considered both personal health information and individually identifiable information, that could be a violation of HIPAA. We don't want to be in a position where we violate HIPAA. Because we're a hybrid entity, they call us, under the HIPAA laws, I think it's very important that we do encrypt these emails so that if we're sending anything out that has a date of birth, a social security number, anything like that, that it's encrypted and can't be opened by anyone other than the intended recipient. Can't be hacked or read. John knows the IT piece of this a lot better than I do. But that's it. That's the basics of it. We wanted to meet the gold standard and be sure that we're as compliant as possible on this. We can do it kind of piecemeal and try to figure out who could potentially be sending encrypted information or personal health information. I think we're probably better off if we just do it for every email address in the county. The way that the system is set up, or the way that our current software is set up, you pay for each individual license of everyone that will be able to use this encrypted software. Right now in HR, all of us are set up with the software. So if we send something out to Wellmark, let's say, or to Delta Dental, or to the RX vendor, whoever it is, when we send it out, if it contains a social security number, it automatically encrypts it, sends it secure, we're safe. It's not necessarily so for everyone else in the county. Social services and Veterans Affairs are now set up that way. So their email, if it contains those pieces of information, is encrypted. There are other places that could send that information, and the cost differential between paying the $75 a license for everybody that we can identify, and hopefully we identify all the right people, is still substantial. But if you, because it's a sliding scale of cost per license, if we did it for the entire county, it's only about an additional $12,000 a year. It does cover, I guess it just ensures that we're not doing something that's in violation of the law. If you send out that information, it is individually identifiable. Minimum fine is $100 an incident. Could be up to $50,000. Compare that to $12,000 a year. It's
Right, great saving, absolutely.
Is this information that would be sent outside of our own network? It was my understanding, are we secure if you have like a
Yes, you're secure
I mean,
within the
are
domain.
those,
And John can address
Yeah.
that.
I don't know
I
the
think
right
the
word.
question is in-network versus out-of-network.
Yes.
So if Ed and I send each other an email, that is considered secure. It's when it goes out-of-network. If I would send it to edg@gmail.com, now that goes out of our network and goes to the internet. And that should be intercepted theoretically.
And because it could theoretically be intercepted, that's why the law was set up so that it has to be encrypted then. So again, if he sent it to me at a Gmail address, we're outside the network, outside the domain, we violated the law. If he sent it to me at egilliland@sioux-city.org, perfect, we're fine. It's within the domain, and you'd have to actually be able to hack in the domain to be able to get it, which I guess is much more difficult. Again, you're way out of my league on that piece, but it's just the difference in how they interpret the law.
So it sounds like it's a protective mechanism that we should have,
Yes.
protect all of our employees here in the county.
And the reason it is, let's say that you have someone from a given department that needs to send something to emergency medical, they need something to send to an attorney's office, any number of different places where you have sensitive information. You just never know when something might go in that email that shouldn't, even if the person on the other end is a person who should be receiving it. You sent it the wrong way, quote unquote, by not encrypting it.
Okay. John, do you have any other?
City and the county are under the same umbrella for
Yes.
this, right?
Yes, sir.
Are those encrypted over at the city? Do they do not?
Unless it's the provider that we have, if who you were sending it to, let's say Wellmark is a customer, same vendor that we have, it automatically encrypts between the two entities as a feature of the software. So we do see that happening. So that's an automatic feature. But not every vendor has the same software that we
So we need a motion to allow you to encrypt this information so that it does not, there's a protective mechanism for all of our employees.
Yes,
Can
yes.
I ask one more question?
Okay, sure.
Yes.
So we would need to use, in order to have any county email I might send, I would use a county-issued device or a county email, county-issued
So as an
address.
example with your tablet, John, please jump in and correct me where I stick my foot in my mouth. If you pull up gw.sudacity.org at home on your tablet, and you send it, if you put Zix Secure in the subject, it's encrypted, no matter who you're sending it to. So as long as the person that you're sending it to is a person who can receive that information, then you're good. And if they happen to be, and the software also does some other things that I think are pretty remarkable from a non-IT person's perspective. If there's a social security number, a date of birth, financial data, credit card number, anything like that in the body of the email or in the documents attached, the software goes in and encrypts it automatically, even if you didn't put the Zix Secure. So it encrypts it, forwards it on, you're in good shape because it is encrypted. And that way you can do it from home or from anywhere that you happen to be, as long as you're using that gw.sucity or su-city.org.
Okay, so if you want something secure, from now on, you would not use your home email address.
Correct.
Okay,
I will need
Do we have money in the the health fund?
We've got a really substantial balance in the health fund, so we would have the money to be able to do that. I don't know that this would qualify as money that we could spend that on, because it's not related to the running of the health plan.
It'll be broader than that, I would think.
Yes,
I mean,
it's
there's
much
gonna be,
broader.
every email now will possibly be
Yeah,
encrypted.
if it was just our department, we could use the money from the reserves. Where it includes other departments, I don't think we can. I think we'd be in violation of state law. We'd be in
I'm going to
violation.
interject, I'm on the agenda here in a few minutes for the telco RFP, and there are substantial savings in that bid, and there would be money for this year's funds for that purpose.
for that purpose, okay,
If you want to repurpose those savings. to
okay,
that.
We
good.
are not, so please stop me if I'm wrong. Is there any way we can use money from Hard Rock or anything like that for something like this?
Well, that's a question that Dennis would have to answer, but I think that but I think, the solution that you suggested, John, would be a good one to use those funds for that too, if we're saving money in other areas.
And is that a yearly charge?
That I think, covered this year. We'd be signing a 2-year contract. When we signed Ed's department up here, it's a 3-year contract, so we're obligated to 3 years payments. So there'd be 2 years left on that contract.
Okay,
So going forward, that would have to be budgeted for. Yeah.
This will be a new yearly
Be more
expense.
expensive.
To cover this fiscal year, we could be covered in the electric go that route.
okay, all right. Is there a motion?
Move it.
Okay, is there a second? To allow the encryption of this information? There's a second. Okay, any further discussion? Those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Thank you. We're going to skip down one more item here. We've got a time-sensitive agenda item, and that is our board administration with the amendment of the budget. Dennis, would you want to step up and take
Sure.
charge of that and go through what we need to go through?
Okay, here first we're gonna start with the public hearing, which is the public hearing. We open it up and we have public comment or any comment from the board of supervisors. I can go through this line item by line item if you prefer. We did post it on our website, so the public could see it ahead of time also. We put everything that you have in your packet on the website.
I guess I'd like to,
We're-
you could briefly highlight it.
Right,
I'd like you to do that.
that's fine.
So the public hearing is open now.
Right, public hearing is open.
Okay. I did give you a hard copy because it's kind of hard to follow through sometimes on the iPad. It's a little smaller, but we'll start right at the top here. And I want to specify, I'll give you some item numbers here that they're all related to the same reason we're doing it. The first one is the uniform patrol settlement with deputies contract. We went past our fiscal year deadline for certifying the budget, so we put in an X number of dollars. That wasn't quite enough, we finally got the final settlement. That was approved April 24th, 2014. So now we're actually incorporating the funds into these individual departments, so it will show up when we do print our budget books. And that affects item number 1, number 2, number 10, and number 19. And the reason you have that many, there are different service areas and different funds. Okay, the item number 3 is the longevity pay for 1 year for percentage deputies of elected officials approved by the Board of Supervisors on July 1st, 2014. Funds to cover this cost will come from cash reserves because the budget had already been certified March 15th. This was actually authorized by the board on July 1st under section chapter 331-904. That affects item number 3, number 5, number 8, number 9, number 11, number 12, number 15, and number 18. The reason you have so many there are different funds again in different service areas, and some also have more than one department division. Okay, number 4. This increase will cover the cost of increasing nursing to a total of 4 full-time nurses in the correctional facility. The Board of Supervisors approves this measure on September 2nd, 2014. Also included in this line item are additional inmate medical care expenses. An example would be 4 inmates that cost approximately $89,000. The nurses, like I said, was approved September 2nd. And if there's any other costs or any other comments, the sheriff or Todd or whoever can address that. But the problem is, once you come into the correctional facility, if you have a medical problem, it doesn't matter what it is, they have to take care of it. And there are sometimes they could relieve some of the costs, but they need permission from other individuals in the judicial system. For the time being, we have no choice but to pay them. And the nurses, right now it's coming out of reserves, next year will come out of actual or budget tax askings. So that'll be addressed when for the public hearing. Number 6, we can skip 5 because I've already addressed. Number 6 is a laminator for the weapon permit card machine. They used to just issue the permit, now they laminate so it lasts longer. They do have funds, excess funds. I don't want to say excess, but they have more funds than anticipate on these gun permits because they're charging a little more than they used to. So that did cover the cost. Plus also covered the machine when they first bought it, I believe. Number 7, see, we've already done that when we did the others. So now we skip clear over to page 2. Is the allocation for WIC is what has to be increased by $65,563 because the January 2014 invoice was not sent to the county to be paid. All the expenses were incurred. So I told them, they were incurred, we have to pay them. So we have to pay them out of this fiscal year instead of last fiscal year. The funds will come from carryover from fiscal year 2014 cash reserves. Number 14, the allocation for the comm center has to be increased by $87,897. The reason for this was one invoice was never sent to the county for processing, and one invoice was sent to the county but not processed. These expenses did occur, and the funds were carried over from 2014 budget year. The funds will come from cash reserves. We have improved that process where they send the claims direct to me. I take them down now to get them processed. Number 16. This is for additional appropriations for the 2 new case management workers that were approved by the board on October 14th. Number 17. This change is threefold. This involves our county health services fund. First, additional funds had to be added to cover community-based 6+ beds and also legal fees. Second, according to the 2080 agreement approved by the Sioux Rivers Region Board, which stated any cash reserves above the 25% of audited accrued expenditures must be turned over to the Sioux Rivers Region Fund, in which Dennis Butler and Woodbury County is the fiscal agent for that trust fund. That amount is a little over $1,050,000. No funds can be spent out of this fund without the unanimous approval of the Sioux Rivers Regional Board. The third item is a reduction of 2 line items for a total of $282,528. This reduction will balance appropriations with the revenues anticipated. When we do budgets, we budget, and particularly in mental health, we have to spend, whatever we budget, you have to have revenues covered. You can't spend more than you take in, because then we're eating up reserves. So I did talk to Patty, and that's what we determined had to be reduced, to get it down to the budget equal revenues. Number 20, this is for secondary roads. This covers the assessment of the city of Moulville water main project against the work that's done on the main office, which was completed in 2014, but not billed until 2015. Funds will come from cash reserves, because they had a budget that's carryover funds again there. Number 21, this increase to cover fiscal 2014 projects let in June, expended fiscal year 2015. This is a special bridge project fund, and the funds were carried over from the special levy that's for 5 years. We are currently in our second year. We have 3 years left of that. A lot of times they get the projects bid out, they can't get them done in the current fiscal year, so we have to pay them the other year, and they go past period 13, so they fall in the next year. So those funds are on hand. We do keep a separate fund on revenues and expenditures, so if any rural resident or any resident in Woodbury County comes in, we can identify expenditures and revenues to show that the money is going for what we said it would go for. Number 22, this increase covers additional costs of the Nature Center Road project. The Board of Supervisors approved a $300,000 central bond issue to help the road out the Nature Center. That's a new paved road going in, and they would cover the balance. The project ran a little bit more, so we're amending it for $100,000 extra, which will come from the reserve funds, which are from park fees, things like that, not tax dollars. Number 22, this is where we're budgeting from conservation reserve funds to cover some land acquisitions and conservation administration capital improvements. That is all of them.
Okay, is there anyone in the public that would like to speak to this budget amendment? Public hearing is still open.
Mr. Chairman, hearing no one, move the hearing be closed.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Item B would be to discuss an action on the budget amendment number 1. Discussion? Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. Those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Thank you, Dennis.
This is the record. This is for Pat, County Auditor, and George is the chair, signs it at the bottom there. Then return it to me.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go back to item number 3. We have one last item there, and that is discussion and action on claim process. Matthew, you want to make a motion on that to have that done?
Yes, sir. For the last 2-3 weeks, we've been reaching out to departments and elected officials to kind of see what this would entail. And I can say I'm just more confident than I was at the beginning about our action, especially after hearing the city of Sioux City does not accept any claims without the description that we're talking about. It was referenced at a couple meetings ago as a tweet. It's actually less than a fifth of a tweet. We're talking about a short description to give the board an idea of what claims are for. I believe that the taxpayers that pay these claims deserve to know that the officials approving them know what they are for. So I would like to motion a directive from the board to utilize these descriptions in the claims process.
Second.
Okay.
Sheriff's Department went ahead and did it.
As far as I know, yeah, sheriff came back, Gene can answer that.
There are several departments that have already complied with that request.
Okay. Any further discussion? Dennis?
To enforce that, the city, like Matthew's saying, does not approve that. Do you want to put that in your motion, that if a claim does not follow the process, it will not be processed? If they don't put the description, because that's how they make sure they do put it in.
If you want to include that, Matthew, in
Yes.
your motion?
I'll
And you
second
second that?
Yep.
Okay. Any further discussion? Those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
What information are we talking about? What are some of these pieces of information that
a description line, if a purchase is for a water heater, if a purchase is for a budget item, if a purchase is for a one-time expense, a reimbursement for personal mileage. There are several vendors that we pay several claims a week to through several departments, and you can range from tens of dollars to thousands from the same vendor. So I believe it's important to see what the individual claims are for before we approve them.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to item number 4, which is planning and zoning. John, you want to, yes,
Did you vote on that?
we did vote on
Okay.
it. John Puello, we want to step up and get some,
Good morning.
good morning.
I'm before you this morning requesting you refer a particular item to your zoning commission for public hearing and recommendation. The City of Sioux City recently completed with FEMA a floodplain study, which FEMA has adopted. That floodplain study impacted 8 Woodbury County, Iowa mapping panels. 7 of those panels are entirely within the city limits of Sioux City. One of those panels, panel 037B, which will become now 037E, has about a 2 square mile area of rural Woodbury County. So if we want to continue to participate in federal flood insurance programs, as well as the funding mechanism for post-disaster grants and loans, we'd have to adopt a study as well as that portion of that panel. This is more formal than it is substantive. Our evaluation of the 2 square miles within rural Woodbury County indicates there's no structures impacted, no property owners impacted. It appears, and DNR concurs with this, that all the changes on that particular panel occurred within the portion of the panel inside Sioux City.
Move it. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
Thank you. I would like to collect this mapping, so don't toss it away if you would. We'll reuse it instead of going through printing costs. Thank you.
Thank you. Move on to item B, 5, which is awarding of the bid for a DHS phone system. John?
Sure. 2 weeks ago, we opened bids in the public forum for the phone system up at DHS at Trosper Way. Two of the bids came in substantially lower than the others, and we tried to create apples to apples comparison between those 2 bids. And I sent a memo out. If there are questions over that memo, that I included in the packet. Not that there should be.
Any questions, concerns?
All right.
Go ahead.
The low bid was a little over $43,000 to Quality Telecommunications out of Sergeant Bluff, and they will begin that process here in the next few weeks. We anticipate January implementation of that project.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move it.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
This isn't going to interrupt the change vendors like this into your current.
That's the goal.
That's the goal.
That's the goal.
I'm just wondering if you're saving $12,000, if that's.
Yeah, it's difficult because we've had the same vendor for 15 plus years, and as I said in the memo, that's been an A+ vendor for us, and this is a tough decision personally and professionally to do that. So
It is a savings, though.
it is a savings.
For the taxpayer, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Thank you, John. Let's move on to item number 7, which is secondary roads. Mr. Nera.
Morning.
Morning.
We're not ready for this yet. We're still on the regular items, so. First item we have on the agenda today is approval of a pre-construction agreement for hot mix asphalt pavement widening and resurfacing on county roads L21 and D22. During calendar year 2015, this Iowa DOT will be improving County Road L21 from Highway 20 south to County Road D22, and then D22 from L21 east to the current Highway 31 alignment. This work is being done in preparation for making those roads suitable to serve as a Highway 20 detour in fiscal year 2016. There's no cost to this project for the county. Beyond, we're going out and taking down some very large cottonwood trees on the outside of the curb. We'll be doing that with our maintenance staff this winter to eliminate that potential off-road collision hazard. But this work's being done by DOT. It's a substantial enhancement to these two roads that's being done on our behalf. This agreement allows DOT to go in and perform that work.
Okay, is there a motion?
Move it.
Second.
Discussion. Those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Item B,
This requires signature of both the chair and the county auditor. The next one is a permit to the Canlis Intercounty Drainage District. This was to allow them to excavate and repair a tile in the west ditch of County Road, Old Highway 75. This work has already been completed. This project was one that needed to be done before we got too much more frost in the ground. We've had an issue at the intersection of Old Highway 75 and Dallas Avenue that has stood water every spring. As it turns out, this tile, which is part of the Canlis Drainage District, was damaged by the installation of a utility. It caused a blockage, and that blockage has now been repaired, and this tile has been restored and put back into service.
okay,
I recommend approval.
Move it.
Second.
discussion. Those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
One item I just wanted to mention today is, as I reported earlier, we had been nominated for the National Concrete Paving Award. We received the Gold Level Award for our County Road D51 project from Luton to Old Highway 75. Ben Kusler attended the national meeting. It would have been December 3rd through 5th, and accepted that award on our behalf. This is really, we got a very good contractor in there. It's also testimony to our project staff's hard work. Jason Carlson, Mike Jerovic, Virgil Bremer, and Ben were all spent a number of hours out getting this project done. And 100 projects were nominated nationwide, and we came out on top. So
Wonderful, congratulations.
please stand.
Congratulations to you,
Proud
Mark,
award.
and our departments.
Yes.
Absolutely. Very good.
I just had one more thing to mention. The quotations for engineering services were submitted to Karen. If you could look those over next week, we'll have on the agenda a meeting of the Ward and Slough Drainage Board. It'd be good if we could maybe publish what those costs were, and we'll try and get some word out and make sure the folks in the drainage district have a chance to maybe take a look at those prices.
Very good.
This is for improvements to that existing tile line, so it would be helpful if the board could look at those next week, so maybe we can make a determination and get that project underway.
I think we can. All right, thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Item number 8, Sergeant Bluff, Aaron Lincoln, and City Manager. See, we have the mayor here from Sergeant Bluff.
You have to put up with me today because Aaron has jury duty.
You mean he couldn't get out of that?
He's filling that commitment. You do have a handout in front of you with the Sergeant Bluff logo on top, and there is a picture attached to that. And Mark will have some comments at the end. First of all, I can't say enough about the cooperation from Mark. This involves moving federally funded roads. This involves moving a farm to market road. And it's amazing when we looked at that process, and Mark, we found out, is the chairman nationally of the Farm to Market
But pays
Road
off.
Committee. And so, you know, he was able to navigate that for us and help us there. So, I mean, it's just,
Great.
it's amazing how much help he's been to us. So we really appreciate that, and we feel that way about the whole county. I mean, we're getting a lot of support during this. It's kind of a trying time for us with all the traffic and everything, as you can understand, because we're physically the closest city center to the projects down there. So, and what you have in front of us is the project that we've discussed before. It's to get the truck traffic moved away from our schools and to the south of our community, and it's also designed to create a technology park for Sergeant Bluff to provide space for some of the vendors that are supporting CF Industries that cannot be in the CF safe zone, but they need to be close to CF Industries. So we have a lot of support in that regard, and we were asked by the county, by Terry Lutz, if we would be, on behalf of the county, if we would be the guinea pig in the process of working with some of the CF Industries TIF money. And we think the process that's been put together is very fair for the entire county, because it doesn't favor Sergeant Bluff just because we're closer, although we might be asking for more total dollars than some other communities further away because of some of these direct needs. But it assures by these percentages that have been established and at some point will hopefully be approved by you all after this process is going through its final review, to have the county participate to the level of 25% for this kind of a project. So we went out and got a RISE grant, and that RISE grant will fund a substantial part of it, and then the city of Sergeant Bluff and the county under this proposal will be splitting those costs, the remaining costs. So a huge advantage for the community of Sergeant Bluff to be able to have that traffic move south of our community. And the other thing that for the safety of the community is cannot be overstated, because right now we have 4 railroad crossings through our community, and the coal trains block all 4 for 20 minutes to a half hour, sometimes longer, every time a coal train goes into the south. And so this gives us another intersection to the south that will not be blocked when the other 4 are. So it'll be for safety, for fire, for police. It will give us another open intersection. So I obviously totally endorse and support the project, but I also totally endorse and support the concept that you all have been putting together, working with Terry Lutz and with Mark. So you can see on your map where it is south of our community. And Mark?
I can go ahead and add some, as you can see what the new route is. This was approved by the Farm Market Review Board at its last meeting. What we've done is we've removed farm to market classification from Port Neal Road going up to First Avenue is your main street through town. County Road D38 where it comes through town, connecting the airport with our Lakeport Road D38 intersection. I think this is a very good project concept to try and get that truck traffic out of the school corridor. We were doing a concrete paving project, that award-winning Luton project, and we had school traffic tied up one night for 45 minutes because there is just no other route. Every year, just about, there is a concrete plant or an asphalt plant that's set up at the Floyd River, former Higman aggregate site, south on Port Neal Road, and there's really only north or south out of there, and the north route is the one that needs to be followed on occasion. One thing I want to mention is this project takes into account Port Neal Road, the primary intersection will be turned and taken east. There'll be teaming Port Neal Road coming out of Sergeant Bluff into that intersection, so the controlled access will be taking traffic over to Highway 75.
Working with Sergeant Bluff, I'm proposing that we add the updating of this pavement segment to the west from the I-29 overpass to the beginning of the Sergeant Bluff project, and updating this intersection as well. As you may know, the city is planning to redo this 225th Street and Port Neal Road intersection, where 225th will become the continuous route through there. The route on the west side of the overpass will be teed into Port Neal Road. It'll make the configuration of Port Neal Road very much similar on both sides of the road. We're looking at about $182,000 out of county secondary road funds to do a concrete pavement overlay so that everything looks like a continuous road on this east side. I think we can save money by taking advantage of making it part of the larger project rather than coming back and trying to do a quarter mile PCC overlay at a later date. It would be an addition that we could come up with money out of the secondary road fund for that portion. And I know we've discussed with Dennis the potential funding for the rest of this project.
I just add one other thing. We had to increase the amount a little bit here at the end. And some of that was because of the farm to market thing, because the engineers have this program and it shows these radiuses for these corners for the semis to make and things. And so that's why you'll see from a previous copy to this, there is a slight increase on the city of Sergeant Bluff share and your share.
The RISE grant is for, you said it's a substantial amount, it's $1 million, correct?
816,000.
816.
Yes.
What's the timeline? We're hoping on this
We
one.
have, the city has paid for the property for the right of way, and the engineering is complete. And we'll be going through the bid process now so that it can start immediately in the spring.
So you're requesting from the county through our TIF revenues,
Right.
over an extended period of time of a little over $779,000.
That's correct, and then we'll take whatever extra efforts are necessary, time. We'll work with the rest of the county, the communities in the county to explain how this works, and because we committed to be the guinea pig in the process. And again, I think it's a great way to spread this money over the whole county, you know, with different TIF projects that don't have to join the main TIF areas, I understand. So I applaud that part of this process, because then every community it has the same chance to benefit across the county, and to me that's very important, and it's going to help Sergeant Bluff, but it's also going to help every community across the county. So that's huge.
Well, I appreciate your comments on that, and, you know, it's been kind of a long process. I think for us to use the TIF funds, don't we have to look at refiguring that TIF area? So you'll have to work with
Yeah, that'll be
another
Terry
city.
talking next.
Yeah,
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 right.
yeah, but we're gonna need your help probably
Yeah,
when we
absolutely.
through that process too.
Absolutely.
So this is a great use. I'm glad you volunteered to be the guinea pig. Someone has
I am
to,
too.
someone has to be
Great project.
first, and that's,
Yeah.
you know, that's
Yeah.
not always the best place to be, but I think it is in this case, so,
Thank you.
yeah.
Well,
Any other comments?
I can tell you I support this, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very
I
much.
think with the cost of construction rising faster than the cost of inflation, it's also a good long-term financial decision, and it's, you know, we've discussed ways we can do it without raising taxes, which I think is important. There's a lot of possibilities that we can look at and we will look at with TIF, and speaking for myself, I don't think accepting every single proposal is doable, but I do think that this is more of a commerce issue than anything else, and I don't want to give the impression it's a favoritism to CF. I think that it's overall it's a commerce
Okay,
issue, and so
great.
it's a good economic decision.
I think it's a great project, but we're talking about bonding for $800,000 to do this project. Now, Terry is probably a year or two ahead of us, and I don't know that I agree with that, so we're gonna have to figure out how we're gonna do this. Like I said, it's a great project, I think it's just a little quick.
It'll take some time.
Well, this,
Yeah, I think we need to know where the money's coming from, I think, in the process to keep it moving ahead. And like you said, the appreciation every year on the cost is pretty significant too. So,
We're looking at February 11th.
right, February, yeah.
I understand your comments on quick, because they're spending it before it necessarily comes in.
That's correct.
But I think the timing is perfect, in that I'm ready to start, progress in this area. I've just been chomping at the bit
Right.
for a few years, and this is the start of things to come, and I'll borrow the money. I think
yeah,
it's.
yeah, I would agree with
I'm
everything you
comfortable
said,
borrowing.
absolutely.
And,
Great.
and I think too, Jackie, you're hitting right on the edge of another thing. The other mayors, as I work with them throughout the county, they're excited to see something get started in a program that they might, be able to use it. And I agree with the economic development / commerce comments totally. But a lot of them want to get a few jobs in their towns and get some more commerce in their communities too. So, and I think we've got a unique chance to do
Is,
that on a prudent case by case basis.
Is dogwood, is that a play on words?
You've heard about the term from the agricultural community of urban blight. And more farm ground is getting used by communities around the country. And that's concerning to the agricultural community. And in Sergeant Bluff, for a combination of reasons, we have been able to work with our adjacent landowners who are longtime family farmers in our community and right adjacent to our community. And we had an annex, or we're in the process, but we had an agreement all signed to where we had an annex from one farmer, then we had to annex the next farmer, and a farmer had to sell us a road right through the middle of his property. And it was all done with no yelling and screaming, very positive process. And I think that's an example for the whole country too, because there is things that make sense to do, and you can't just throw everything under the bus of urban blight. So I think that there is a play on words here. The landowner that sold us the road through his piece of property, his name is Doug Wood, and the Wood family have been longtime third, fourth generation farming family in our community. And so if you take Doug Wood and just take out the U, you get Dogwood. And so we were very excited when he agreed to let us. We had to suggest it to him, but he agreed to let us do that. So yeah, that's where the name Dogwood comes from.
well, I'd entertain a motion, ladies and gentlemen, to proceed with this agreement between Sergeant Bluff and Woodbury County to develop this particular project.
Move it.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion?
Is
Yes, sir.
this motion, are you expending the funds or are you committing the funds?
I think we're doing both, as far as I'm concerned. That's just me, Larry. I think we're committing ourselves to the project, and we know that we have the TIF project in place. We have a plan presented to us a number of weeks ago by Mr. Loops that sounds pretty, it's solid. Our future looks good as far as I'm concerned for the Woodbury County, as far as commercial and economic development. These funds will become available. We may have to, as you know, borrow the funds up front, but they can be paid back eventually from the TIF funds once they start materializing in 2016, 2017.
To me, it's only dependent on expanding that urban renewal area so we can actually
Right,
use
yep.
the TIF funds. Now, if there's a
Absolutely.
breakdown in that, that would be the only thing I can see that. in my
And we
opinion.
understand that from the process because we've obviously, as a guinea pig, been involved with Terry, and we're, as a council and myself, we're committed to that.
We'll
to
put you
make
in
that
the
work.
negotiation, just like
Yes.
you got that road through that farmer's land. We're gonna let you be right in there doing it.
Mark, do you have any other?
We'll need to work out the budget adjustment for secondary roads as well, and where the funding comes from for that additional piece that we talked about from the overpass to the beginning of the project.
Mr. Gleiser?
I guess just to speak to address some of your concerns, Mr. Clausen, the proposal for our TIF use policy does present this as an investment in which, Woodbury County would recoup the investment through taxes generated through sharing with the municipality that we entered an agreement with, so.
I understand all that.
Okay.
What I don't understand is how we can commit it until we know about the funding. And right now, we don't know about the funding. And maybe Mr. Lutz is gonna clear that up later, but it's not clear right now to me.
I think at this point, we're bonding for the money.
Out
Yeah,
of
yeah,
TIF
yeah.
funds, if you can,
But I mean, what we've done right now
Right.
is bond for the money. We can talk about the other things down the road.
You have a way to pay that back. That's the only thing I'm saying. And right now, you do not have a way to pay those bonds off.
Okay. Devil's in the details, which will be worked out. Any further discussion?
Can I ask?
Yes, sir.
what the motion is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because,
I'm not clear.
maybe you can help me, Joshua. This is the discussion was item 8A, so we had the discussion. Now we seem to be on
8B.
8B, and is there a formal agreement that is before you to sign?
There's not a formal agreement. I think that the agreement will be worked out, and I think that's what the motion indicates, is that we will work out the details of this, and we proceed with the process. And then once that process has been developed, it will be brought back to us through Sergeant Bluff and also our financial advisor and this board to make the final decision on the details.
We do
But this,
have an agreement before us,
right.
and you and others, we've all worked with Terry for how many months to get it to this point.
Absolutely. Any further discussion?
So the motion is,
That's what I'm asking. The motion is to proceed with the process.
Proceed with the process.
Okay,
That's what I understood the motion as well, to proceed with the process.
all right. Thank you.
Those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
Aye. I'm not
You're
against the
welcome.
project, I'm just concerned that this is not,
I know, you want to see
Cleared
the money
up,
in the
yeah.
bank. As you always do. You're a good guy. Let's move on to building services. Do we have Mr. Head in the room? Okay, Mike? We had on the agenda a week or two ago the leakage problem, in the LEC, and we wanted Mike Head, who is our assistant building manager, to come back and talk about the situation over there and what needs to be done and future prospects in rectifying the problem. Go ahead.
We've actually been in the middle of work on this for about the last 3 months, 4 months. As of probably tomorrow, we're actually going to have A, B, C, D, and E coated the inside of these piping areas. The floors will be coated up to the doorway, so that if water doesn't get in there, it'll come out the doorway before it goes down and hit the judges. Some of the stuff is going to be hard for anybody to stop when they flush stuff down. Well, that's, then that kind of gets out of our hands. We're about halfway through replacing all the P-traps throughout the judges' chambers. So that's what's been going on. This year alone, we've had seven instances of water. So that's
7 this calendar year since January.
7 this calendar year.
Is that less than before, or is that more? Is that less than before, or is that more?
Oh, I didn't do year to year, it's about the same.
About the same, okay.
Yeah, I know it's reported to me once a week, and, I got right here, seven to the year, and we're almost done this year. So it's not a severe problem, but it is a problem that we are addressing. Now, we should have all the coating done, I would say, right by the end of this week, if not next. So, and hopefully, I got probably about 20 P-traps left throughout the building on that side. And to change them, just because, usually you just don't go around changing P-traps just because. We can try to do a test on some of the pipes and get a weak pipe and let it change it before it does fail. That's the best of my knowledge of the deal.
I'm not,
So you do have a plan on,
Yes.
and watching that and monitoring it,
Yep, yeah.
and resolving some of this issue.
Yeah, and, we just actually, the reason it took us this long is because of the DOC, the smell of the coating we're putting on, we had to find something that we could put in there where it wasn't gonna bother the inmates. So it took us a while to find the right product, so we have purchased that product, which is here, and, we will start putting it in, so.
Does it have a strong odor?
No, this ain't, no, this is.
I mean, the old
This
one.
is zero.
Okay.
Yeah, other products are very strong.
Okay. Any questions from board members?
if there was to be some sort of a major overhaul with the plumbing, would these sort of problems still exist with the inmates?
It's, the inmate problem is a total different problem than a leaky pipe. I've seen sheets where they wind them up and they'll send them down the sewer line. And, there's nothing you can do about that. When you get tons of water coming back at you because somebody wants to manually mess you up.
So it's not a pipe problem, it's
No.
water
Yeah,
escaping the
it's-
pipes.
Right. Yeah, it's a tough, you can't foresee it. And it's not like it happens every day. They get a sheriff's department here, and it's not something that happens every day.
How much of the problem, though, do you think is due to the piping versus the inmates? Because,
Like I said, I got 8 work orders, or 7 work orders for this fiscal year. And, out of this fiscal year, we have 1 E-track on that. The rest is just water problems in the jail that come through. So hopefully with the coating of these tunnels, that should almost eliminate almost everything except maybe bad E-track ones, which is kind of hard to, just can't get anything stuff out.
Has there been water since you coated it, though? I mean,
Yeah.
have you coated some of it, and then,
No, we just started.
oh, you just started,
Yes,
okay.
we had to go in there and clean all these tunnels out. We had to cut back all the insulation, seal up around all the holes, and then we're doing the coat on top of that, so it should be 100%. So I think we're gonna see great things.
So we should maybe wait to make a decision
Yeah.
until you have all the coating finished and then see where we're at. Lisa,
I do, however, appreciate the judge's concerns. If you're sitting in your office and there's water coming through your ceiling and you don't know what it is,
Oh, yeah. Trust me, we've been over there. I mean, there's nothing worse than you got somebody getting wet.
Thank you, Mike. Anything else?
Lisa has comments.
Lisa?
Well, and I appreciate Mike keeping the record, but I would indicate that 7 incidents doesn't mean, well, we were just inconvenienced 7 days. Mike and his staff worked for days dealing with some of these incidents when they happen, and from dealing with things going on at the top to dealing with things going on at the carpet, and that effort goes on for days.
Okay.
and I'm just puzzled by how this is, I don't want to blame anybody, but how it's been a problem for 25 years. I guess I'm wondering if this coating, if what you're doing is what's been done in the past.
There was never nothing done in the past.
There's never nothing
Nothing
done.
has been coated.
Okay.
Since when they built the building, none of this has been done. This is what we're doing to help situate the problem. And I think it's really gonna be a very helpful thing. Like I said, we got about 20, we got about half of the E-traps we're doing. We have 4 wants us to go in there and cut out E-traps and put new ones in just because, we can do what you want.
what's a P-trap? I shouldn't,
What's a
but
P-trap,
I'm not
Mike?
even sure what that
Yeah,
is.
we don't know. It's-
So I'd have to go on your recommendation.
It's getting there. Like I say, I'd say by the end of next week, hopefully we're gonna bust their code. And I think we're gonna see great things from it.
Okay. Well, keep us informed, or this board informed.
our prisoners are not the only ones in the world that do this, is that correct, Lynette? It's happening everywhere.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And if we'd had that monster eater back when we built the jail, we might have eliminated
dominated some of this stuff. Remember that green monster?
The
deal?
grinder.
Everybody,
It
the
had
grinder?
to, it
Yes,
had to get
that
to
would
that
help.
monster, that was the problem.
I would also like to point out that the judges are not the only people that get liquid dumped.
That is right.
I hear the sheriff got it too.
Okay, well, let's stay on top of it. Thank you, Mike. Okay, item number 10, McClure Engineering.
We need just a minute to get set up if we could.
Okay, take your time. You want to take a little 5-minute
Want
break?
to take
and
a
then,
5 minutes to get ready?
Okay, let's take a 5-minute break and get set up, and we'll be right back.
Sure. For the record, again, my name's Terry Lutz, McClure Engineering Company. With me at McClure Engineering Company is BJ Stokesbury. He's been very instrumental in helping put this final report together. And Michael Washburn, who is our regional manager here in our office. He's been helpful as well. So what we're here to do today is present to you a very high overview of the draft report, which we have copies of here, and I'll hand them out when we're finished. And we want to just kind of go through the high-level pieces of this. And I'm going to focus on things we really haven't talked too much about in specifics that we've done more research on since the last time we were here and presented. And I think by the end of the discussion today, Larry, your question will be answered. It's a legitimate question, and there is a way in which we can, if the supervisors choose, there's a way in which you can help Sergeant Bluff get moving forward and be assured that you'll have the financing necessary to do that. So, in the beginning here, we created a document, and it's called the Vision 2050 Program. Here's what it looks like. Again, I'm not going to hand it out till the end, otherwise you start thumbing through it. But with this, like all strategic plans, we've created a vision and a mission statement. And the vision statement, and with some help from you, has been basically to enhance the quality of life for all the Woodbury County residents. I think that sums up really what this is all about. And the mission statement we've put here, basically what this says is that you're kind of in the business, given the resources that you now have, you're kind of in the business of helping all the communities in the private sector within the county to continue to grow the economic base here in Woodbury County. Again, this is in detail in the report, so I'm not going to elaborate on it, but just to make everybody clear again, the study area in the report really looks at all of the land south of Sergeant Bluff and Sioux City, down to just north of and west of Salix, from approximately the I-30 or the UP rail line in Old Highway 175 west to the river. So that's the area we're going to talk about. We're going to elaborate on that a little bit more. Again, the reason for doing this study is the tax revenues that you are anticipating coming from CF Industries and the urban renewal area that you've created there, which allows you to capture those new tax revenues over the next 20-some years to use at your discretion. And when we look at those, it generally from 2018 through 2038, it'll generate about $130 million of new tax revenues that again are captured within your urban renewal area and TIF district. And you can see in 2028, those revenues ramp up to about 6.1 million per year. That is new tax revenue. And by the year 2038, when your TIF area expires and they are fully paying full taxes or no more taxes being abated, it'll be $13.8 million of new tax revenues to the county. It is almost impossible to get your arms around the financial impact that this is going to have to the county over the next several years. In my 35 years of business and traveling the state doing this kind of work, I've never seen one project of this magnitude bringing this kind of opportunity to anywhere in the state. So congratulations, you've got a big chore on your hands. And so as you engaged us 6 months ago to take a look at this, to help you provide some guidelines in terms of how do you manage the kind of revenue that is coming in, And really, you're faced with a couple of choices that really boil down to two things. One, how much should go towards property tax relief, and how much should go in investing in projects, much like Sergeant Bluff is asking for, that will drive more growth. And so with that, what we've talked about in more detail in the past have been projects that have been identified, and we'll get to those a little bit later, but I wanted to spend a little time talking about the impact on the property taxes in terms of, just to give you a magnitude of order of how this tax revenue might impact your overall tax base. If we look at just the county's portion of the tax rate comparison to counties within a 100-mile radius, which is one of the things we were to do, we look at the county's portion of the tax rate. Potawatomi County is the highest tax rate within all the counties from a 100 miles radius of Woodbury County in the state of Iowa. We also have comparisons in the document on counties across the river, but we were really kind of focusing on Iowa here. So when you look at this, Woodbury County is the second highest of the, I believe there's 27 counties within that 100-mile radius. Calhoun is right behind you, Audubon is next, and then the two lowest counties in terms of the county portion is $5.40 for Ida County and Dickinson County at $5, which is not surprising given what's going on at Dickinson County. If you look at the total consolidated tax rate that rolls in not only the county's share of the taxes, but also other taxing jurisdictions, if you live in Potawatomi County, you would be paying the highest at $30.53 a thousand. And you can see when you rank this way, you are ranked 9th from the highest, with Dickinson and Carroll County being at the lowest. So at $26.10 consolidated levy, again, this is in the county, this is not in a city, this is in the unincorporated area of the county. You're ranking 9th from the top, about 1/3 of all the counties within a 100-mile radius. Now, if we look at trying to say, okay, if we have $130 million of new revenue coming into the county, and we want to try to have an impact on property taxes, and we have a request for investments, how do we balance this? So we've modeled, you'll see it in the report here, but we have modeled about a 20-year financial model, rolling in the capital investments that have been identified and so forth. And basically, if we look at a model where we're putting 70% of the TIF revenues towards property tax relief and 30% of the TIF revenues towards investments, you can see in about year 2022 or 2023, you'll start getting some property tax relief. And you can see the yellow area there shows the dollars going towards repayment of debt and expenses associated with investments, and the green portion is showing revenues going towards property tax relief. Now, in the TIF policy, which we shared with you earlier, this is laid out in the TIF policy, and I want to make sure, I'm going to say this a couple of times today. The TIF policy and this program, or this report, is nothing more than a guide in which to help the supervisors understand the order of magnitude of what you have here, and then as this board and future boards deal with requests much like Sergeant Bluff's request today, and property tax relief, you'll have the privilege of deciding how much of this is going towards property tax relief and how much is going towards infrastructure investments. So what we've tried to do here is model this to give you the tools you need to make some of those decisions. But for various reasons, you may decide to put 50% in investments and 50% in property tax relief, or skew it one way or another. And again, that's decisions you'll have to make as you go forward. To give you an example, yeah, Larry?
Back to the one you just took off.
Uh-huh.
What are you using for annual expenses there? How are you coming up with?
You'll see that. We've taken the infrastructure requests from the meetings we've had with all the cities, which includes the South Bypass Road that Sergeant Bluff is requesting. We have, if it's not a one-time annual expense, if it's a capital investment like the $780,000 they're asking the county to pay for, we have taken that capital cost, we've assumed that you would bond for that cost, and that you would pay that bond off at an interest rate of, I believe we're using 2.5% and a 12-year amortization period. So the yellow area represents the sum of all of those investments made at that type of a debt service repayment schedule.
In the first few years there, you're above the line with expenses.
Correct.
Does that take in the road we're talking about?
Yes, yes. So as we've said kind of when we started this, the opportunity you have, the real money doesn't start to show up until 2018-19, probably 2019 actually. What we've suggested you move forward with is the planning and laying this out, and then starting to work with communities that have interests, so that when the money does start coming in, you'll be in a position to react and really start making some investments. We also think, given the development pressure that's occurring right now, that you have an opportunity to make investments today in anticipation of receiving these tax revenues in the future. And you have a very secure agreement. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But you have a very secure agreement with CF, with your minimum tax agreement, that binds them forces them basically to pay the property taxes that you've already agreed to.
Right.
So because of that, that is bondable. It's a guarantee of future payment. There's still a level of risk there, but it's very minimal at this point. And so what we're suggesting is that over the next couple of years, you look at projects like are being presented today and others whereby you can get the quickest return on an investment. If you can start generating new taxes and new jobs over the next few years, you'll be ahead of the game and still financially secure and in a position to be able to make those investments today and starting to ramp up future tax revenues. Remember, everything we're looking at in this report for the most part is all about making investments where you're going to get more tax revenues and more job growth. We're not talking about investing in things, park benches and those kinds of things. We're talking about real things that drive economic development, much like the road that they're talking about. Go ahead, Jim.
Now, we agree to disagree on this because we're going in debt and you're going to increase taxes in the meantime,
Not
prior to 2018, 2020.
There's a way in which you could structure that. When you sell bonds, there's all kinds of ways your bond assistance can help you structure repayment of those bonds. You can, what's called wrap interest payments around future revenues and pay nothing up front for a couple of years. You can capitalize all that interest up front. And
Right, but that affects your interest rate, what you're saying.
Yes, there's all kinds of ways in which you can do that. What we've recommended in the report is that until 2018, you not commit any more than $10 million to any type of significant long-term investment. And that's because, here's where the risk comes in our opinion. We have CF out there. You are in a situation where they have signed a minimum assessment agreement. They are obligated to pay the taxes per that agreement. Those kick in 2019. From now until 2019, they're building stuff that is taxable, but it's not on the tax rolls yet. And if something would happen, a big catastrophe would happen, and they shut their project down, until those assets are literally taxable, we would not want to see you get in a position where you've committed investments that you have to make payments on based on those investments that CF is making. By the time you really start to incur debt, any significant debt, we believe there'll be enough taxable investments enough taxable assets on the ground at CF where you can comfortably make the decision to make those commitments going forward. I'm not sure you're there today, but I think you're very close. If not right today, I'd like to have you at least read through what we've got here, get comfortable with what we're proposing here, continue your negotiations with Sergeant Bluff, and I think very quickly you can be in that position to make that commitment. and understand that, Larry, you still need to be convinced, I appreciate that. I've told you from day one, we would never bring to you a project and recommend that you spend money unless we feel there's a very strong way in which you're going to repay it. And I still feel that way. So we're going to continue down that path. Just to give you an idea here now on the impact of property tax relief, you know, it sounds good when you say it fast that we have 130 million coming to the county over the next 20 years. Let's put it all towards property tax. It's going to eliminate property taxes in Woodbury County. That's not quite how it works. But so we did a little table here. If you have a $120,000 home, for example, in the unincorporated area in the county, your current property tax bill on that house is $1,746. Now, if we were to, I'm going to go across this graph to the right, if we were to put 100% of the new TIF revenues coming into the county towards property tax relief through this period, you'd see an average property tax savings of about $126 a year on a consolidated basis. That is about a 7% reduction. So instead of paying $1,746, that homeowner would be paying $1,620. If you put 70% of the TIF dollars towards property tax relief, you would save that individual $86 a year. So you can see that, you know, it's 7% or so is 7%, $86 is $86, but it's not like we're going to be cutting property taxes in half, even if you put all of the TIF dollars in property tax relief. When we have more detail on this in the report, I'm just doing the highlights here. If you lived in Sioux City and still had that same $120,000 home value, your total taxes in Sioux City are $2,962. And you can see the impact if you're in an incorporated area of a community, it's less because of the way the taxes flow in incorporated versus unincorporated of the areas of the county. So that gives you a little overview as to terms of what 100% and 70% goes, and we're set up now to model this in any kind of fashion you would like to in the future. The other thing we looked at is a commercial property. If you have a commercial piece of real estate, we just picked $5 million taxable valuation, and if that property was in the unincorporated area of the county, those property taxes today would be $117,000 a year. If we put 100% of the TIF revenues towards property tax relief, that property owner would save $8,500 a year. That's significant. Again, it's about 7%. And his tax bill would be $108,000. If you do, I have 69%, it should actually be 70% there. If you put 70% towards property tax relief in the county, that person would see a tax bill of about a savings of about $5,800 a year. And then if they're in the city, you can see the numbers there, $5,800 saving potential and $3,900. And again, that's on a $5 million piece of commercial property. Is everybody with me on that? Any questions on that before I move on? So again, you've got this in the report. You can digest it at your leisure. And so it does help kind of start to frame up where you might go. Our conclusions in the report basically are, in terms of property tax relief conclusions, number one, it has a minor impact on overall property taxes, but it is significant, but in our opinion, it's still somewhat minor. And so we're recommending that you continue to try to balance potential new tax base and jobs that may come from new investments versus property tax relief. And frankly, this right here is the core of why TIF exists in Iowa, because the people that really analyze this stuff kind of have come to the conclusion that if we can capture some of those TIF dollars today and make maybe a 5 to 10 year commitment, we might get a greater return in terms of new economic development opportunities from that than the benefit of property tax relief in over a period of a short term. It's really making an investment today for the long term at somewhat the expense of everybody sharing in the wealth for future benefit of all. And so that's it. And again, you'll be challenged with that as you go forward as to how much should be allocated for each portion.
And your revenues, like the red line, assume no farther development.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. What this represents is strictly from your urban renewal areas that you have in place today, which is probably 99% coming from CF and a little bit coming from, who's the other?
Railroad.
Yeah, there's a rail project there. So this is guaranteed money today. Obviously, the intent here is if you make those investments in yellow, we want that red line to go up. It'll ramp up and generate more revenues. That's the theory. So that's what you'll be faced with as you go forward, and that's why you get paid the big bucks to make the big decisions, how you're going to invest these monies going forward. Our last bullet point here is strategic investments may yield more property tax relief and jobs than allocating TIF revenues towards property tax relief. That's the challenge you'll be faced with. Okay, capital investment program, CIP, we call it capital investment program. And so these are projects that have been identified by stakeholders and they're in our financial model. Now I'm going to talk about those in a minute, but what I wanted to do here is talk a little bit about the TIF policy. I want to just hit this again because I've already had calls where people are not in agreement, I should say, with our TIF policy, which is good. We've got a lot of discussions started. It's a guide only, and one of the things I would encourage you to continue to consider is some of the smaller communities. You know, again, the vision here is for all of the county to participate. Much like John mentioned a minute ago, he's supporting the fact that you have an opportunity to support all of your communities in the county, which is what you're probably elected to do. And so as you look at that, obviously larger cities have more resources financially than the smaller cities. So you may have, and you're going to see in a minute here, our recommendation in terms of cost sharing and so forth. But I would encourage you to keep an open mind in terms of the policies that we've set up. As people come in with projects, you may need to participate more than what we're suggesting, and in some cases, maybe you have an opportunity to participate less than what we're suggesting. All of it needs to be managed over the course of the next several years. And again, you have the right financial resources to probably do about anything. Basically, the core of our policy recommendation in terms of cost sharing is exactly in line, and it's ironic what Sergeant Bluff, when we met with them, they already had a project in mind, and it worked out about exactly how we were proposing this, and that is that 25% for infrastructure projects. If the county thinks of maybe themselves as funding 25% for infrastructure projects and 50% cost sharing for land purchases, we've talked about the theory behind that before, I can elaborate on it if you want. But basically, that's what we're recommending, and that's what we've put in our model. So when in the Sergeant Bluff request, they have gone out and of 100% of their project cost, they got 50% of the cost from RISE, which is the DOT grant. They're putting up, the city is putting up 25% themselves, and so your opportunity here would be to match their money with your money at 25% participation. If you follow along that guidelines, and what our financial model illustrates is that it leverages, and this is the theory behind what we're suggesting, is that you leverage the TIF revenues coming in somewhere between 2 and 4 times. And when you do that, you can generate what we've identified as $150 million worth of infrastructure investments that I'll talk about in a minute. And if you follow somewhat along these guidelines, it takes about $41 million of your TIF revenues, which is about 40%, I believe, close to that, of your total TIF dollars coming in over the next 20 years. So, again, that's the theory. Somewhat follows the Vision Iowa theory in terms of you being a lender of last resort, encouraging the local communities and the private sector to go find monies in other places and come to you as the gap funder for projects to get them over the hump. And with an attempt, again, to leverage your dollars and spread it as far across the county as you can. Okay, I'll stop right there. Any questions to this point? And I'm gonna go to the specific projects real quick. Anybody back here have questions? Okay.
I have one,
Okay.
just overall. Is this something usually that a city would come up with the TIP policy, not necessarily a county? And I go to these county meetings, and if there's not a whole lot of discussion or meetings on this topic.
Good
Terry?
question. We work with cities all over the state, some counties, I can't pick one county that's probably the situation that you're in. Webster County is probably getting close, but nowhere near your level. But they are struggling with the similar issues. And frankly, I've never seen a TIF policy drafted to the extent that we've put in the effort of yours. Most cities have some basic guidelines, but they don't have this kind of TIF revenues where they really have the opportunity to say, hey, we can put some towards property tax relief or make significant investments. They're usually dealing with project by project, and they have to use the TIF policies to support that specific project. Because you have so much revenue coming in, you can think much bigger than that, and we've encouraged that in our document here. This is an unprecedented situation, and I just can't express enough how important that is for you guys to understand that and really think differently than you've ever thought before, because that's what you're faced with. So, as we look around, and this is tough, the way you guys are set up in here, it's tough to get everybody to see this. I don't want to talk to everybody's back, I don't have to, but probably nobody can see it if I show it that way. Can anybody get their own? Some people, you guys see this at all? Okay, we took the list, and there's, I don't know, probably some 30 or 40 projects. Again, they're all listed in here, they're all in a spreadsheet that looks out over the next 20 or so years. What we've done is pick the top 10 list, if you will. And so these are the top 10 priority projects as we've interpreted them from all the people that we've interviewed in this process. The number one project is the CF work in which you've already committed $800,000 of infrastructure for some on-site work and an $800,000 road. Those are dollars you've already committed to CF in one form or another. Some of that's going to start getting rebated in 2018, and that's this project. It's the work associated with CF's site, which is right here. The second highest priority project that we've talked about now for the last couple of years is doing a new interchange justification report study at somewhere between mile markers 138 and 140. That is a very critical piece in terms of getting access into the service area that we're talking about. Number 3 is the Sergeant Bluff Bypass Road. We put that right at the top because they're here today asking for your help. We see that as a critical project to accomplish what they're looking for, and ultimately becomes a very critical piece of our transportation infrastructure to serve this area. Number 4 is in conversations with the city of Sioux City. They've had some recent success at Southbridge. They've made a ton of investment in that area. One of our recommendations is in here is to look for areas in which investments have already been made and look for ways to leverage those, to grow those. That's probably where you're going to get a quick return on your investment. So we're suggesting this is kind of a out of the air number. We've had off and on dialogue with the city of Sioux City and not sure how interested they are in this, but there are some significant capital needs and opportunities, in our opinion, that could be generated there if more land was acquired, more rail installed, more roads, water, and sewer. It's a great start to a very significant industrial park in the county. It's in the city, but the city happens to be in the county as well. So if we look at number 5, Portdale Interchange, we see that as being, we know there's development pressure now, the interchange is now open. If that area was served with sewer and water and other utilities, you'd probably have tax base being generated there. My guess would be within a year or 2. So we've recommended a couple of ways in which we can get water and sewer there. Quite frankly, our recommendation in the report, Sioux City has a significant water line coming down here. that serves the CF site. And we've modeled this whole area with water, and it would be quite simple to just extend a water line from here over to there. The infrastructure is already in place, very significant amounts of water. And if we look at item number 6, which is our mega site, it starts to loop what someday we hope to be a mega site. There is another way in which to get sewer, or water, I should say, over here, and that's if Sergeant Bluff, or excuse me, if Salix runs a water line up there. It's more costly, would probably take more time, and it still is a viable technical alternative. But in terms of availability of supply and treatment capacity, Sioux City is definitely in the strongest position to be able to get large volumes of water to that interchange quickly. So that's our number 5 recommendation. Number 6 is to continue starting this, well, probably re-engaging in the discussions regarding a potential mega site. And so our plan has that mega site in its eye at some point in the future. And so that'd be number 6. And we've got rough dollars aside with each of these here. And these are total costs you're seeing, in most cases, not just county's portion. Number 7, we identified as the Orton Slough. We understand where that project is from a drainage perspective. We believe there's a great opportunity to take the Orton Slough and start to create a sustainable stormwater management program that could be the start of how things get developed in this area with much more environmentally friendly ways in which to manage storm sewer, I should say. And because if you look at the footprint of the Orton Slough, and if you start considering converting farmland to commercial, industrial, and housing development, the conditions at Browns Lake could be in jeopardy. And so the transformation of this land over time will continue to put pressure on everyone to solve stormwater management issues. So we have laid out concepts as to how to enhance and handle the stormwater in that area. All of that is somewhat driven by, and one of the things we put in here as a priority is to eliminate blight. Your TIF money can be used to eliminate blight and enhance the environmental quality of the region. So we see this as a nice asset, the Browns Lake asset. While that's not probably a huge job creator, it's a nice amenity to the county, and I don't think we want to do anything up here that jeopardizes the amenity that we have there. So we have some concepts in the report in terms of how to deal with the Orton Slough issue. That's number 7. Number 8, Salix has requested some assistance with some water system improvements in their community, which I think would beef them up and give them a more stable water supply. It deals with the water towers and other things. So and they've also got funding in place. So that's something that could get done quite quickly. And we believe that positions them then to potentially beef up water, particularly water service to the Salix interchange, which we see probably being in their service territory. The last infrastructure component that we have identified in the top 10 list is to get water and sewer around the Browns Lake area. And there is a financing mechanism that lends itself real well for that, where if we could use 25 to 30% of county TIF dollars, we could buy the cost of that project down, where I think it becomes very affordable. So, and then again, that further enhances the water quality of Browns Lake and so forth. So if you really think of Browns Lake and this being all developed, the concerns they have, and how you could manage it here, it kind of all fits together. Item 10 is not on here because it's not an infrastructure component, and it's something we haven't talked about until I started putting the report together and thinking through all the comments we've had the last several years. One of the things that we're suggesting is that the county and the region, the Siouxland Initiative and others, continue to forge positive relationships, and whereby the county is more engaged with the Siouxland Initiative on a month-to-month basis, both from sitting in on meetings, participating in the process, and from a financial commitment standpoint. In areas where cities and counties combine and work together with their economic development efforts, good things will happen. And by the way, we led this charge when I was the mayor of Fort Dodge. We were, I think, one of the first cities that actually used TIF dollars to pay for staff positions and marketing of our industrial site. And there's a way in which you can do that. You have to follow the guidelines. You have the same bonding attorney that we use. But you can actually allocate some of your TIF revenues to support those efforts, both with your economic development person and with the Siouxland Initiative. So we're recommending higher financial commitment with the Siouxland Initiative, continued strategic alignment, joint marketing effort. In fact, we're suggesting that you collectively come up with a way in which to brand this entire area. Maybe it's called South Bridge, maybe it's called Liberty Park South Bridge, or South Bridge Liberty Park, I don't care what you call it. We're suggesting you brand it, market it globally, because it really does have the global opportunities to move this forward. Okay, real quick, I'm going to hand this report out now and ask you to look at, we only going to look at one page for now, so don't be wasting time on me because I'm trying to get them out.
You have an extra?
Again, just for everybody who might be interested, these are draft reports. You'll see at the end here. Purpose today is to give these in the county's hands, let them review it, and we'll be looking for final comments. We're looking to roll this out and maybe publicly in the next couple of months. Okay, if you go to the page that we tabbed with the yellow sheet to the right. Everybody get on that sheet with me? Okay. Now, I found out just before I walked up here, we have a mistake on this sheet, so I'd ask you to turn one more page. That's why it's a draft. Okay, if you look at what we've done here, this is the 20-year, actually about a 25-year financial model that at the top rolls in the TIF revenues, and at the bottom, based on 5-year priority segments, are the infrastructure projects that have been identified. And everything I just talked about on this sheet is in here. If you look down where it says priority 1 to 5 years, come down about 5 lines, you'll see the Sergeant Bluff Bypass Road, $2.3 million, $780,000 of county share. That ties in with Mayor Winkle's request. And so Larry, to your point, if you follow that across, we're showing in 2016 a debt service payment of $76,000, again, assuming that you sell a bond and finance it over a 12-year period. And so that's built into the financial model, and you can see that that's an obligation you would have for the next 12 years if that's how you chose to finance that project. You with me on that? Okay, so again, we've looked at, you can see there's very few projects in the first 5 years through 2019. In fact, they don't come close to totaling $10 million, I believe. But they're programmed in there to the extent that best that we can estimate them today. In fact, John?
Yes.
Excuse me, sir. Were you going to build your project in 16 or 15?
We're going to build it this 15. Yeah, this is coming spring.
Okay, so our estimate's probably right. We're showing debt service kicking in 16.
Right. That's
So-
why I look at it that way.
Yeah, so if you financed it in 15, the first payment would probably come in 16 and so forth. So we have others in there that the obligation that you've already made to CF is built in there. And we've got water and sewer investments in there as well. So anyway, this is now formatted so that each year you can say, hey, we want to put this project in, take this project out, and see how it looks and so forth. So you now have the tool in which to make those decisions. That's really all I wanted to say about that because it's very detailed. We can be here all day talking about those things. Okay, last couple of things I've got here is, I just mentioned it, collaborative marketing efforts. This is really number 10 on our list. Continue to forge stronger relationships with the Siouxland Initiative to create more strategic alliance in alignment on regional marketing activities. Develop a brand for this area, one message, consistently delivered and marketed globally is really what we're suggesting. And it's just a tremendous opportunity, and I think that's how you can best seize it. And again, increasing financial contribution collectively with the Siouxland Initiative. Annexation continued to come up in all the discussions we had, and I couldn't say it enough that this is not an annexation study. But it's clearly an issue, and while it's really not a county issue, it's a city-to-city issue. Everything we're talking about here, extending utilities and so forth, starts to make city officials question where their service territories are. And as we step back and look at this, we think until those issues get resolved, but from city to city, again, it's not a county issue, we see that as a detriment to growth. So as a county, you really have no role in this other than to continue to encourage the cities to work together to get those resolved. And so what we've recommended in here is that the cities get together and talk through, who can best serve this. It should be a non-emotional, factual discussion. Who can best serve the areas with utilities? Let's get that figured out. If that means we get moratoriums of annexation developed or whatever it is the cities need to do, once that is resolved, then each entity, working with or without the county, can start making good, solid, long-range infrastructure programs and plans so you can market this correctly to someone, to the world, essentially. So, again, our point here is just really support the cities in their annexation efforts. Okay, final schedule. Yeah, I did want to touch on one thing since it came up today with Sergeant Bluff. And this is very critical to the city. I think everybody knows this, we've talked about it. To move your project forward, and David, I don't know if you're already starting these discussions, maybe you are, but to move your project forward with Sergeant Bluff, you cannot spend urban renewal funds generated around the CF project in other areas of the county unless they are included in the urban renewal area that has already been set up, and that area can be amended. You've already amended it once. That urban renewal area, which is essentially here, and extends over to here and comes down here a little ways, that is your current Liberty Park urban renewal area. We can legally amend that area to include the area at the Sergeant Bluff Road to be able to use your dollars up there. Because you're in a 2-mile limit of not only Sergeant Bluff, that is not annexed into the city, right? Okay. As long as if it was annexed into the city, you would only need Sergeant Bluff's approval to amend the urban renewal area to include that area. Because it's not annexed, you need both Sergeant Bluff and Sioux City's approval to amend your urban renewal area. When that process starts, there's a negotiation that will occur between how does that amendment look from a cost-sharing standpoint of new tax revenues that might be generated within that urban renewal area. So you and the city of Sergeant Bluff, and possibly Sioux City, may need to, all three parties may need to sit down and hammer out those details in terms of how the TIF is handled within that urban renewal area. So the first thing that has to happen is the urban renewal area has to be amended, and then there has to be the same agreement would then deal with how TIF revenues are shared. And we've made some...
Who should initiate that compensation period?
Well, what we're recommending in here is really your job. What we see the county's role is telling the county, all the other citizens in the county, you now have these resources, you've established some policies, we are open for business. So anybody that wants to come and request our funds, in round numbers, here's kind of what we're talking about, come talk to us. Much like Sergeant Bluff has done, they're here, they're asking. They're kind of ahead of the, getting the cart a little bit ahead of the horse, but that's great. Because now we're at a point where you can start developing some procedures and policies on how you move forward and handle the applications and so forth. But as those come in, if you've got the formal request, now you can sit down and start dealing with your attorneys and engineers in terms of how all that works. The core part of that discussion, I'll just give you a little heads up, will be, as you amend this urban renewal area, you're doing this to not only relieve traffic, but hopefully to generate more tax base. And we've laid out a process in here whereby if the county invests here, your goal might be to share in some of the new tax base that comes there, and then basically get out. So once you're paid off, that urban renewal area essentially goes away the way it's originally structured. It would stay in place, but your agreement might say, once you're paid off, then all those TIF revenues might be under the control of Sergeant Bluff. But it could also say that, hey, we're in this together, we want to continue to share in those tax revenues as they go forward. But again, the goal is to take the investments here, be kind of the gap filler for other investments, and then if that creates new revenue, you get repaid and can use those other monies elsewhere in the county, continuing to leverage up those dollars. Yeah. Yep.
When you talk about extending the urban renewal, can you make any kind of a commitment, like the Sergeant Bluff in this case, without the urban renewal being in place?
No, you do. You were right, Larry, earlier. I don't agree with you very much, Larry, but I agree.
Yeah, but I'm
with
right
you.
all the time.
I agree with you. The county is not in a position to legally finance the road today. You cannot, well, you could.
You could without.
But it's not gonna come out of TIF.
Right.
You're not gonna use your TIF dollars to do it.
Exactly.
Well, my understanding is they've already done it once with the road done by CF. What's the difference then and now?
Because they amended their urban renewal area. Well, excuse me,
Well,
did you
we're
use
agreeing
TIF?
to amend ours, so that's.
Yeah.
the same.
Yeah, I think you're all on the same page. but-
Process.
Yeah, you just have to go through the process. I think you're all on the same page, it just has to be done.
Right, and that's the agreement with Sioux City and Sergeant Bluff
Correct.
and the
Or
county.
maybe just with us. I mean, our annexing is getting pretty close. So,
Yeah, if they get an
in
annex.
all likelihood, it's gonna be, sorry, Terry.
No, go ahead.
In all likelihood, it's gonna be annexed prior to that, or to that urban restructure, urban areas restructure.
Just so everybody understands, they can't make a commitment of TIF dollars until that agreement is in place.
Right.
You're exactly right.
That's just good business.
Yep.
That was a question that came up, Mr. Clausen approached me during recess about what the motion actually stated today, and so I'm going to read to the motion so that everybody leaves here with a clear understanding.
That would be a good idea.
What it says. The motion was by Monson, second by Lamb, to proceed to develop a formal cost-sharing agreement for the Dogwood Trail project with the city of Sergeant Bluff. Okay.
And if nothing else happens, that's a bond issue.
Paid for by the tax, yeah.
Right.
Yep.
We would hope that's not the only thing.
Oh, that's not my understanding, is that we wouldn't bond unless there was a TIF, unless the urban renewal area.
If the tip blew up, we're-
I don't know that that's what I agreed to, but
I
would
think
we
you'd
have
probably
one
need
chance to
you'd
agree to
probably-
that?
You probably need a further action of the board at that time if it's gonna go that direction.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, supervisors need to understand what you're signing up for, and if you're
Right.
signing up to use TIF dollars, in my opinion, you should not commit that until you have an urban renewal area approved, because it may take more than just Sergeant Bluff at the table. If they can get it annexed, then it probably becomes just between the two of you. If it's not annexed, then it's a three-party agreement.
Okay.
Okay? Okay, so let's get to, final next steps. Here's what we're recommending. Submit the report to the supervisors, which we are doing today. Final comments from the county. We'd like to give you, we've got some great holiday reading here, so I'd like to give you an opportunity to read this over the next several weeks. There's a lot of stuff in here. Feel free to call us at any time with any questions. If you have anything that you'd want changed, or we haven't quite addressed properly, we're willing to continue to modify this thing. The final report, then, we would like to get it submitted to you in January or February. Look at my screen there because we changed this on the way up here.
I'll do that.
We'd like to then consider, because of the other parties that have participated in this, as you know, we were going to have a meeting today with everybody, but if we could suggest maybe having that, once you've got the report in final form, we could then roll it out to the public, and we're suggesting sometime maybe in February, potentially January. And then what we would like to do is coordinate a meeting with, if we could pull this off, I think this would be huge. If we could get some representatives from the county, Sioux City, Sergeant Bluff, and Salix, and even better, someone from CF, or two from CF. We would love to organize a meeting in Des Moines with the DOT. This would probably be a joint meeting with the DOT director, Deb Durham and her group at IEDA, and the governor. I know this is on his radar screen. I think he would be more than eager to sit in on a discussion. And so once we get buy-in from the region, I think we could help start marketing this by hosting a meeting like this and kind of roll it out at a state level. And then you're basically in business. We're recommending you start accepting applications, which you could start now, much like Sergeant Bluff, and then continue to develop and plan the top 10 initiatives as we lay them out. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Secretary, now the final report.
What's that?
In the final report, does the board accept that final report in February, January, February? Is that what you're talking about? This is what you handed out here?
Yeah, maybe the better way to do it would be to get you to the point where you like it. We could finalize it. By the way, the final will be a little nicer than this, more firmly bound and so forth. And there's a few changes we've got to make in here as we continue to review it. But if it was basically in final form, then you might want to think about rolling it out first. And then if that meeting goes well, come back, adopt it, and you're off and running. I don't know that it's really all that
So you
critical.
want that to take place probably in February?
January, February, something like that. I mean, you could accept it now and take it under advisement, continue to review it and so forth. But there's still some changes that need to be made. Nobody's had a really good chance to digest everything we've got in there.
I think this is a great information meeting, and it probably should be reviewed by the board, for that future determination.
I agree, and you were able to go over this information too with the new supervisor coming on. You told me, Mark, arranged a meeting so that, so we're kind of all on, not to this level.
Yeah, not to this level, but basically, I think we heard about everything we talked about. Had a good opportunity to talk about TIF and how all that works.
Okay, so
But
these were all kind of going into January with some kind of background, all right?
Nobody has seen all the information at the same time. It's all come in pieces, and we've now got it all pulled together. Now you need to review it, read it, and give us your comments.
Well, I think this has been a great report. It really sounds exciting for the county as a whole and the community as a whole. We have some great opportunities here
Huge.
for growth. David, you want to comment?
So we can begin, drafting application paperwork and cost sharing agreement templates immediately to kind of help, be on pace with the completion of the final report before accepting it and developing a strategic plan for going forward.
Okay, all right, sounds good.
Hey, before we leave, can you turn to about the third page, second or third page? Third page. I found a quote that I thought applied here from Henry Ford. Coming together is a beginning, keeping together is a progress, and working together is success. I don't think you can say it any better.
You can't say it any better than that. It's great.
I have one more thing to clarify. This says draft. I was just asking Joshua about this. Is that asking the board how they want us to treat this, because normally what I would do is put this on file for the public to peruse. But Joshua can explain what your options are.
Yeah, it's really up to the board whether to make it a public document this time or it can remain confidential under the exception for draft materials, which is essentially what it is at this point. It's really
It's up to the board.
Yeah.
So I'm essentially asking you if you want me to place it on file or if you want to give it back.
You have corrections.
We do. I would feel very comfortable, me personally, you just making it as public as you want. There's corrections in here, there's amendments and so forth, we'll get those cleaned up. And it is a draft, it says so in the upper right-hand corner. But I have no problem with the information being shared.
It's the pleasure of the board. Make it public.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that either. I think, you know, the presentation you made a few weeks ago out at the Nature Center basically was the same kind of presentation here. This is a more formal setting. I mean, that was formal too, but we have things in black and white now. I think that once this proposal in the future has been adopted, it's still not written in concrete as you have suggested. There will be amendments and adjustments made in it that as we go along and work with the various communities in making this work. So I really don't have any problem with having this go out to the public.
I move to receive this draft document so it can be made public by the auditor.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion?
Are we gonna put it on, the computer? When you say make public, you can't make all these copies, so we're gonna have to put it on the computer.
And I've come look at them. You have digital?
Not yet at this point. Not all pulled together as such.
So you would just
As
keep
a-
a copy of that, wouldn't it?
Yeah, we'll just keep it going. So, please.
I got a comment on that, on your, if you're gonna make it public, make sure that you do this, handle this the right way. You got a lot going on here, so make sure you don't just blow it out there and then it's all, make sure you got all your facts and everything good. You know, I think I'm all for it, but make sure we don't get into that political thing we had before on that other deal, on the Liberty Park and Southbridge and all that stuff. So make sure that you approach this right, you know. I just wanted to caution that before we vote for everything. Everybody here thinks it's just a good deal, and it goes out there and everybody's defensive. So I just wanted to, just make sure you take a second, just a next thought on that deal, because you know, that's all I want.
Because we've been there before.
Yes.
You know, that's a good point.
And I get calls, and I gotta play both sides. I think it needs to be approached, this is kind of a new slate, I believe, from the last time we went through, you know what that was, and now you got a second chance. This is, you know, CF's underway, you know, we've done a tremendous amount, now I've been very cautious down there with what we're doing, what I'm doing down there on that, with that new facility we had. And I just want to keep it that way. It's been very positive, and we need to keep continuing that way. So it's just not falling out of the sky, and now they're going to start moving land in and moving that. I just want to make sure that it's approached right, because you do have a tiger by the tail. I don't think anybody knows, even in here, what's going on out there. I do believe in what the potential is there. I just want to make sure we get everything.
And you'll, believe me, this will be very controversial. We've made statements in here, so we have a Century Farm map in here that shows it. We've made statements in here that says we cannot buy land, condemn land for economic development purposes. Nobody's being asked to sell.
I know all that.
All that's
I
in
know
here.
that here. I know.
And I can guarantee you, this big of a thing will be, this is growth. With growth comes controversy. Tough decisions have to be made, and it is good.
On that aspect there, I agree with everything you say, but, okay, and keep moving forward like that, but have an answer, have something, have a good answer of a reply. Somebody says to, you know, of just what you said, we're not gonna do this, we're not gonna do that, but when they have these questions, you gotta make sure you let them know that, you know, it's really gotta be, the answers have to be displayed correctly, or it won't, it'll just be the same thing.
Part of the rollout could be, you know, we talked about rolling it out to the other cities and so forth in the county, not just the 3 or 4 cities here. But you could also do either as part of that or in addition to a public rollout, particularly with the landowners in the area. So we're open to any of those kinds of things if you want our assistance and all that.
I mean, like, and I don't mean to interrupt here, but say you got this CF, you know, you need to put, okay, you got CF, the CF money, which I know that gets beat to death, which you don't even have that in your pocket yet, whether CF is gonna, you know, that's always, that's a risk there. But the fact is that you got this money coming into the county by, you know, the money is coming to the county because of CF. All right, and that's why you have to do something here with that. Otherwise, it just lays there doing nothing. So that's what the people got to understand, that you do have this money here, that we got to do something with it. And so we're trying to make it better that way. Not before there was no money, before CF was here, that we were just bringing stuff onto a map and trying to expand, and there was no answer. We were just trying to develop something out of nowhere. I mean, we had some resources here, but now we have money that has to be done something with, so we need to share that with people. That's why we need to move something, because that's what it's all about. We actually, you know, so it's not we're just grabbing the money, we're just not trying to grab the areas. We actually need places to put this money. So, I mean, that's the kind of way I would approach that whole thing.
I'd like to add just one comment. I agree with what Dan is saying, and I think it's a good first step to make this public right away, you know, because that gets it out there to people. But then we got to be ready to answer the questions, like Dan says, and try to stay on the proactive side of this. Because I think every one of us wants to do it right and maximize the benefits. Because it's like the 100-year storm for this community. Only is a perfect storm in literal sense. So
Correct.
You gotta have
I would
good
agree.
leaders. You gotta have people that
I would
are
agree.
good leaders that'll move first.
Okay. We do have a motion on the floor to receive this as a draft. Any further discussion? Those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Anything else?
No, I'd just like to thank everybody for the energy you put in helping us get to this point, including Sergeant Bluff, Sioux City, and Salix, and some of the landowners as well. It's been a fun process. It's been educational, and it's been very trying.
I was supposed to say, it hasn't always been that way.
But
Thank you.
the light is at the end of the tunnel.
Right.
Thank you.
All right.
Move to adjourn.
Okay. Those in favor, get up, please.
thanks, everybody.
Thank you, John.
I knew just where he was coming from. So I had no
You
issues with
can't
that.
really argue with him because he always is valid. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't always argue with him, but he usually has some
You
valid
gotta
points.
realize one thing about him, his brains are sitting there trying to get
You need your voice, Larry. Grounding is right. So as we can outvote